time for the Fantasy Feud.
Let's go! Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Fantasy Feud. I'm your host, Marco Balsamo, and with me today, Joey Zoll.
Let's go! That was a quick change of voice from the pre-show meeting to the start there. Let's go!
Is that that's my voice? Really?
That's how you just did it real quick.
Joey, we're supposed to
have more like average voice than that. That's a little odd.
Joey, we're supposed to get into the show before we start trolling Marco.
I love how Alex never gets introduced. I get the whole red carpet rolled out for me, and Alex is just has to kind of chime in eventually where he can.
Everyone knows I'm here.
It probably seems really like scripted. It's not scripted. We get lost in having our conversation, Joey, and we forget. Alex Balsamo is also here. Welcome, Alex.
I'm here and ready to go. This is one of my favorite shows that we do, and I can't wait to just absolutely destroy both of you this round.
I think potentially.
You didn't do too hot
potentially.
Last year.
You were gifted one just because it felt fair.
For our listeners here, if you did not read the title of the show before starting it, we're having ADP Debates today. So we each have a matchup 1v1 to debate two guys who are going right next to each other in Dynasty ADP. Very important. This is a Dynasty argument here, all right? And we're going to have about 3 minutes each to give our point of view, why we think this guy is the better of the two guys. Then the third person is going to vote alongside with two of our members of our team here, Nate and Tom. Nate, what's up? You want to say hi to the people?
No.
Is Nate there? Did you guys get Nate?
Huge energy coming from Nate right
now. Nate's freezing up, which is funny because we were going to make fun of the fact that Tom is an idiot and doesn't have his mic working, and he can't figure out how to get his mic working, so he's just messaging in the chat. But apparently Nate also can't figure out his connection and has some bootlegged internet over there. It's going to be lagging the whole time. So maybe neither of you guys talk. That works.
This is a hot start.
All right, you guys ready to get straight into this?
Let's
hot
do it.
Start for us. Everything's working. We're firing on all cylinders here. All right, let's get straight into this. We're going to start off. Here are the three debates that everybody has today. So Alex and I are going to be starting us off with an A.J. Brown versus DK Metcalf debate. I am Team A.J. Brown, Alex Team DK Metcalf. Then Alex and Joey are going to be debating with David Montgomery versus Josh Jacobs. Alex
I'm Josh
is
Jacobs.
David Montgomery, Joey's Josh Jacobs. And to finish it off, me and Joey are going to be debating with Zeke versus J.K. Dobbins. I'm J.K. Dobbins, and Joey's Zeke.
That's going to be a
good
good one.
That's how we're going to finish it off today.
Yeah, it's going to be
You
more
guys
of like
ready?
a philosophical debate.
I'm ready.
All right, I'm sitting back. It's all you guys. All right, who's going first? Who's
Marco,
starting
you
off?
take it. You take it.
All right, Marco. Marco's going to start with his opening
I got
argument.
first?
Yeah, you're going to start with the opening argument for A.J. Brown. Alex is going to follow up with his opening argument for DK, and then we're going to open it up for cross-examination. All right.
All right, Marco.
Cool.
Let's see
I
what we
got
got.
3 minutes, right?
The floor is yours.
You giving me a timer?
No, I'm just going to hold you
Timer set?
accountable.
3 minutes?
I'll hold you accountable for the most part.
All right. Hold me accountable. I hope you do. Please do.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get going. So, I'm going to go ahead and break this down for everybody in the terms of an equation, a bit of a math equation when it comes to fantasy football. You guys have heard me talk about this in the past, but this is how I view fantasy football. It all comes down to math. And that equation is opportunity times efficiency equals fantasy points. So let me break down first the efficiency of A.J. Brown versus DK Metcalf. Last year, A.J. Brown had 248 fantasy points versus DK Metcalf's 272, which is something you might see and think DK did better. However, A.J. Brown missed a couple games. He averaged 17.75 fantasy points per game versus 17.02 fantasy points per game for DK. So very, very close, but A.J. Brown edged him out just a bit there. A.J. Brown had 7 games greater than 20 fantasy points for you, playing 2 less than DK. And DK had 5. So he outbeat him in the 20-point range with 2 less games to play.
I'd just like to say that's not true.
Both actually had 3 games. Okay,
Order.
absolutely is true. I hate
Order.
This is a stop sideline. Yeah, objection, please. Thank you. 7 games greater than 20. Anyway, both had 3 games under 10 points, so equal there when it comes to the inconsistencies. AJ Brown had 426 yards after the catch versus 360 for DK. That's with 23 less targets and with 13 less receptions. He outscored him by 62 yards after the catch. So it's how dangerous he is with the ball in his hands in comparison. They had an identical 10.1 yards per target. They're close in catch and true catch rates, but AJ wins by about 1 or 2% in both of those. So when it comes to the catching ability, they're very, very close, but AJ, again, edges him out. AJ had 4 drops versus DK's 8. AJ wins in contested catch rate as well by 2%. So going into every single category of efficiency, AJ is slightly better. I'm not saying he's night and day better than DK, but he is slightly better. There's not a single one where he's not better in comparison. So the efficiency goes to AJ. The only argument then that lasts for DK is opportunities. And he has had more opportunities than AJ, but I think that's going to change. So AJ had 11 touchdowns last year versus DK's 10. So he outscored him in touchdowns, and I think that can continue to go that way. He had 106 targets versus DK's 129 targets.
All right,
AJ
you got to wrap this up at
now
some
has
point.
Corey Davis. All right. You didn't give me
No,
a timer.
I'm not saying.
I'm looking at the timer.
You're
It's
done.
been
You
2
just gotta.
minutes.
Yeah, it has
He's
been
giving you
over
a
2
warning,
minutes.
bro.
Giving you a warning.
This
Just
is
keep going.
so much interruption. Why don't you just use a timer?
There was
So
no
much,
interruption
bro.
in
You just
4
went for like 3
minutes.
straight minutes.
Can I just go then? Jesus.
Yeah, 30
All right.
seconds. Wrap it up.
He had 106 targets. I fucking hate you guys so much. 106 targets versus 129 for DK. Now, Corey Davis, Jonnu Smith, and Humphreys have all left the Titans. It's 192 targets available to be distributed out to everybody else. I think A.J. Brown's easily going to be taking a major bulk load of that. He could be a 150, 160 target wide receiver this year. And lastly, if you look at it, 15 touchdowns were taken away with Davis, Jonnu, and Humphreys all leaving. So again, more touchdowns to go around for AJ. And I don't think that's going to more so go to the Derrick Henry side. When you look at the comparison there, they already had 26 rushing touchdowns versus 15 passing. Long story short, he's going to have a buttload more opportunity this year. It's going to blow it out of the water what he had last year. He's going to match or exceed DK, and he's more efficient with it. So he's going to have more fantasy points.
All right.
I'm done.
Okay, Alex. I appreciate that, Marco. Thanks for everything, Alex. Let's try to tighten it up. I think if you tighten it up, you're going to have a very good chance of winning this debate.
All right, so
Use a timer, Joey. I didn't even exceed the limit.
You can't
Go.
start a timer now. Thank you. It was so boring and dry. So boring and dry.
He'll have to bring it back cross-examination, Alex.
Yeah, no, we'll bring it back. We'll start off with DK Metcalf. I will. I got you. So DK Metcalf, obviously one of the most electric wide receivers in the league. Everybody knows that. And I just want to start off by saying, like, DK and AJ Brown to me are both top 7 wide receivers in fantasy. They are both up there. This is just a battle of which one you're going to take first in a draft. And for me, I think that DK has more chance at progression going into next season. And Marco used the stat, and I said it wasn't true about DK only having 5 20-plus games compared to A.J. Brown's 7 or whatever he said. And while that is true, Marco chose 20 for a reason. DK had about 3 or 4 games that were 18 or 19 points, which, I mean, if you're just going to ignore those like they aren't good fantasy numbers just to prove your point, that's kind of silly. DK had 8 games of 18-plus fantasy points.
You got to pick a number somewhere. I'm sorry. If you were allowed to interrupt me, I'm interrupting.
Shush.
You have to
Order.
pick a
I
number
said
somewhere.
order
20
for
is a
him,
round number.
order for you. Shush. I saw what you were doing. Back to you, Alex.
It's a good point. It needed to be said because the way Marco frames it is as if DK didn't even come close to that number 3. Only 3 times is what he got, 20 plus of. And it's true, but DK had 8 games of 18 plus points if we want to go down to 18, which is very good fantasy numbers. And A.J. Brown had 7. A.J. Brown played 2 games less, of course. But A.J. Brown's game is so centered around touchdowns. A.J. Brown, he gets about 1 touchdown per 10 receptions. And that's where most of his fantasy points come from. To be exact, 49.7% of his fantasy points come from touchdowns. His game is just revolved around touchdowns. And if you see a touchdown regression at all, then his fantasy points are just going to drop, because DK went from his rookie year and he progressed 30 receptions, and he progressed 3 touchdowns, and he progressed about 300 yards from rookie year to the next year. AJ Brown increased his receptions about 20, but only increased his yards about 15 yards compared to DK's 300. So DK does more in terms of fantasy points and gets fantasy points in more ways. He does it with yards, he does it with receptions, and he does it with touchdowns. He only had 1 less than AJ Brown last year. And I think that improvement that you saw from his rookie year to his second year just shows that what he's capable of the more and more he plays, because he came into the league being slow around corners. I got you, Joey. I'm finishing up. He was slow in all those drills, everything. That's why he slipped to the 4th round. But now that he's improving these little aspects of his game, he's getting better and better, because he started off as just a deep play receiver, right? And now he's getting underneath. He's getting 9, 10 targets, 10 receptions in a game, and he's got the touchdown aspect the same way A.J. Brown does. I also just would like to point out that the Titans ran the ball about 50% of the time, which was top in the league. So you kind of, there is open targets on that offense, but it's hard with how much they run the ball with Derrick Henry.
All right.
Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf are a better duo.
Okay. Before you jump into it, Marco, we're going to structure this a little bit. Okay. Marco, you can open up for the very first questioning to Alex, and then Alex will respond with a question. You guys iron out that question, and then we move on to the next question. Talk to Alex. Have a counterpoint. Let Alex respond.
Let me. I have to say one thing that has nothing to do with a question first, and then I'll give a question. The first thing I have to say is he said that that AJ Brown's percentage of fantasy points from touchdowns was 49.7 or something absurd. He had 11 touchdowns. That's 66 fantasy points. He had 250 fantasy points. So it's not 49.7. I don't know the math right off the top of my head, but it's somewhere in between 25 and 30%. Like, he did not have half of his points come from touchdowns. That's absurd.
I would like to say that was a 2019 stat. So should have probably said that, but I missed it.
Let's talk about
2019.
Argue
50
stats.
All right,
argue your players. Don't convince me on if the stats correct.
Oh, the stat's not correct, and it's part of the argument. So I have to make sure I say that first. Second, everything Alex said was completely anecdotal. It made no sense. DK's just better all around because he had 1 less touchdown and he gets you more fantasy points in different ways. AJ Brown gets you more fantasy points in different ways because he gets the ball in his hands and then takes yardage after that, gets into the end zone on his own instead of these deeper plays that what DK is mostly getting throughout the time. AJ Brown's the better all-around receiver. He's just not as monstrous big or fast as DK, but he's very big, he's very fast. He's a better receiver all around.
Yeah, but we're not here talking about, we're not scouts in the NFL picking a wide receiver for our team. We don't care who's better at creating more yards or who's getting to the touchdown by themselves. What DK does well, he does well. He gets long receptions, he gets in the end zone, he's a red zone monster. And he does the same things that A.J. Brown does, but he gets more receptions and he's open more and he creates more space for himself. A.J. Brown's game is centered around touchdowns.
He's not open more. He doesn't create more space. Those are arbitrary numbers without any data because it's not true. He gets more receptions and he gets more targets because he's gotten more, and that's it. That's all it is. A.J. Brown has averaged more fantasy points per game. He's been more efficient when he's playing. He is a better, more efficient wide receiver who has had less opportunity. But we're going into a year now, year 3 for A.J. Brown. He's dominated 2 years in a row. Year 3, he loses the other top 3. It was him and then these 3 guys in a row that were the next receivers on his team. he's not going to see more coverage. They're still going to cover him the same exact way. Corey Davis and Jonnu Smith weren't taking coverage away from him. They're still going to have to stack the box versus Henry. And if anything, you want to argue that the Titans have this absurd balance of rushing touchdowns versus passing touchdowns? They do. It's true, which is why there's an opportunity for that balance to be shifted towards passing a bit more and A.J. Brown to get more touchdowns. While DK's already where he can be, he's not going to get more. They might get more rushing touchdowns.
But why do you think, you said that there's nothing that proves what I said about DK being open more or DK whatever. Why do you think that he had 31 deep targets to A.J. Brown's 11? Do you think it's just that they toss the ball up to DK and hope he does something with it? No, it's because he's open downfield more because he's faster, he's bigger, and he's stronger.
It's the type of receiver he is.
All right, I'm going to ask you guys this question. Okay, we're going to break it down into a structure here. Which situation do you like better? The quarterback, the team, the way they play? Who'd you lean to? Marco, make your case on why you think A.J. Brown would have a better situation than DK.
Yeah, I'll give it to the Titans too. And I don't think that has to be the only reason. It's just why it's not something that I've argued. But the Titans scored more offensive touchdowns than the Seahawks did last year, and that was with Russ arguably in MVP mode last year. So, yes, Russ is the better QB between the two of him and Tannehill, but they had more offensive touchdowns on the Titans. And again, the percentage has been extremely lopsided to the rushing touchdowns. The defense sucking. All right, fine. Their defense sucks. Great. Guess what? Still does. They get
a lot better this year. That's not true.
The touchdowns have been extremely lopsided compared to the rushing versus passing, which is, to me, it's either going to stay the same or it can become heavier on the passing side. It can balance out a little bit. The opposite is true for the Seahawks.
I don't believe the opposite is true, Joey, to be completely honest with you. I mean, we have seen the progression of this Seahawks offense go from a run-heavy, run-dominant offense to now letting Russell Wilson control everything, letting Russell Wilson let it go a little bit. And DK's game is an exact representation of that. DK went from 52 receptions in 16 games his rookie season to now 80 receptions his second year. And that's based off of the offense and the way that they're evolving, the way that they're changing. And I think that's going to continue. I don't think there's any reason to believe that DK's not in for another 80 to 90 reception season with another 1,300 to 1,500 yards with another 10 to 14 touchdowns. There's no reason to believe that that's not the case. He is getting better and better, like I said, with everything that he does. We saw that from his rookie season to his second year, and we're going to continue to see that going forward. I just don't like relying on A.J. Brown to just get me touchdowns. Because if he's just getting me touchdowns and not receptions, this is
not
PPR.
The case.
We're talking PPR here, and it is the case. He went from 55 receptions to about 70 receptions, I think, last year. Increased by 15. That's good and nice. He did miss 2 games. I'll give you that.
But he didn't play in 2 games.
He had 15 more receptions and only 15 more yards. So he's not a big yard guy, that's for sure. He gets his yards on each reception, but
yes, he is. He had over 1,000 yards with 70 receptions.
He had 1,000 yards on 50 receptions the season prior. He's not getting better. He's not getting better. What did he get better?
Yes, he is, Alex. Nobody in their right mind watched A.J. Brown play this past year and didn't say he's gotten better. You're on
statistically speaking. Statistically speaking, where did he get better?
You tried to make it.
Statistically speaking, where did he get better?
Catches, yards after the catch, I have no idea. I'm just saying, you watch this guy play, he got better. He might have had less opportunities. There might have been different situations that he had his catches this year and didn't get targeted deep as often. It doesn't mean he didn't get better.
Now we're going to go situational.
Absolutely.
He didn't get better. He had 15 more receptions and 15 more yards.
All right, we're just repeating the same stuff over and over again. I want to hear Marco's final argument. No, you want to go to the vote already? Because I'm going to tell you, it's not going to look good for you. I want to hear your final argument.
The final argument is simple. Alex has very simply told you over and over, DK's getting better every year. He's going to get better. If you watched football last year, you know A.J. Brown got better. You're crazy to say anything otherwise. He's going to get even better, and he was more efficient than DK last year. He's going to get more opportunities. DK might not. DK already had 129 targets last year. He might not get more targets this year. He could regress potentially. That's possible.
Why?
I'm not saying Dwayne
Why?
Eskridge is a threat, but they spent their first pick on a receiver. They didn't have a wide receiver 3 last year. Maybe now they do with Dwayne Eskridge. Maybe he gets some more targets. 129 is a lot of targets. It's very realistic that could, I'm not saying big time, but that he could have 120 targets this year. AJ Brown is very likely to increase. Where else is the ball, if they're going to keep putting up the same pace that they did last year, where else is the ball going to go? Henry's already maxed out. There's nobody else. Josh Reynolds, of course, will get a bulk of those targets. He's not going to get all 170, whatever it is.
Of course.
But
like,
of course.
of
Somebody
course.
else, excuse me.
Anybody.
Another receiver, whoever becomes a wide receiver 2, is going to get a bulk of those targets.
All right.
But AJ Brown's going to increase. And if
Alex,
he has,
do you have anything final to say?
Yeah, I mean, can I have a closing statement too here?
Yeah, you can.
AJ Brown was 8th in target share last year. So among his team's passing plays, he got an absurd amount of targets. And in DK Metcalf's case, he was 19th. So, like, if you think Dwayne Eskridge, what is DK going to move back to? 25th in his
Alex,
team passing
you're
plays?
making my point for me. They pass more on the Seahawks. They might pass less this year.
How is he make? Okay,
all
right.
All right, Joey. They pass more on the Seahawks, and AJ Brown was better per game in fantasy last year.
If I could get 5 seconds,
so all there is,
let Alex finish.
all there is for Seahawks to go down and for Titans to go up, and it doesn't. And last year, AJ Brown was already better. So I don't understand.
I think both were pretty similar.
Joey,
offenses.
can I finish? Can I finish here real quick? Thank you. Marco's point of the Seahawks are only going to get worse and the Titans are only going to get better. What does that? What does that make sense?
The balance.
My God! Can you shut up for 2 seconds? What does that make any sense of? Like, the Seahawks are already 20th in the league in it, so they can only get worse from there, and the Titans are top 5 or 7, and they can only get better from there. That doesn't make sense. I just told you a second ago how DK Metcalf is a representation of how the Seahawks offense is evolving. I'm sure if we look back, Seahawks passing plays was probably 32nd in the league, and now they moved up to 20th. Why is there anyone to say that they're not going to move up anymore?
Time. Here's my 2 cents on the situation. I think the Titans' defense last year was surprisingly bad. I think a lot of their game had a lot of catch-up in it, which is not normally what you'd see from a run-heavy team. So I think the Titans, in my perspective, are going to take a step back in their throwing because I think their defense to take a step forward. They should be able to control the clock a little bit better. I'm going to lean towards DK. I think Tyler Lockett's taking a step back. He's not going to have as much of a domination on that team. And then I also think that the Titans should not be throwing as much next year as they were last year because of that awful defense and playing catch-up. So my vote's to Alex, Nate, and Tom.
You didn't even – hold on. You just gave your reasoning. You didn't say Alex won the debate. Did he win the debate?
Well, Alex won the debate too. Alex won the debate because he wasn't. My vote's for Alex. Yeah, exactly.
Huh?
Thank you, Nate.
Yeah, but I'm saying it was your own reasoning. It wasn't. It was his own reasoning, not Alex's reasoning. Is what I'm saying.
I just gave my 2 cents prior to giving my vote. Marco is like his life is leaving his face right now.
You guys are because you guys are stupid sometimes. You literally don't follow words. Joey, it's a vote on who won the debate, not what player do you prefer. That's if Joey preferred DK.
I prefer AJ Brown over DK Metcalf. I think Alex won the debate. I think he was way more concise than you, and he argued his points one versus the other a lot better than you did.
Concise because he didn't actually have data.
I actually only had data.
He had so much data he prepared
you had things that you
streamlined his argument.
You idiot. I forgot I have to dumb shit down for you. It's fine. Next time I'll make sure. Go ahead, Nate.
You guys are missing this. But
let's hear Nate.
Let's hear
Nate speak.
Me and Tom are trying to figure out how to get him to work. We've tried different emails. We've tried all kinds of stuff. Now he's just pounding beers. He is just off to drinking now. All right. So it doesn't. Tom, regardless of what Tom thinks, Marco has lost the debate. You can see it in his face. You can see it in his heart. You can see it in his soul. Marco has lost. Marco
the
is a
listeners
loser.
know. The listeners who are intelligent out there and can follow along.
Oh, here he goes. Now he's gonna make the viewers hate themselves if they pick my side.
Who do you vote for? Can you just end it? Go ahead, end it.
Tom wasn't here for half the thing. This next debate is me versus Joey, and I feel like
Whatever.
Marco already has an unbiased opinion against both of us. So
Yeah, well, I mean, you're his brother. I'm just a neighbor from
Yeah.
the past.
Go fuck yourselves. You
All
guys,
right, Joey.
you guys-
I'll roll with
start
Montgomery.
off. I'll start off
I'm
because I haven't
checking
got to
out.
say enough words yet.
I'm going to
all
actually look at a timer and not interrupt you guys in the middle while you haven't even finished your time and say hurry up. So, but go ahead.
I was me and Alex
I'm
had,
supposed to
Alex
make a
had paid
fucking
me on the
a
side.
valid argument while you're
You know what?
interrupting
You
me
should
like a
send me some more
motherfucking bitch.
Venmos then. Alex
ahead.
just send me
Sounds
some
like
money.
excuses. Sounds like a couple
All right.
excuses.
Josh Jacobs. May I have the floor? All right, Your Honor. I am going to explain to you why Josh Jacobs is better than David Montgomery, and there are 4 main reasons. 1 is running back talent. 2 is scoring opportunities. 3 is a better situation, and 4 is the running back depth chart. So we're going to start with 1, the running back's talent. Josh Jacobs, he evaded a bunch of tackles. He's a big boy, but he can also evade a ton of tackles, make defenders miss. He had 25 more evaded tackles and only 5 more touches. David Montgomery is just not an incredibly talented running back. He was in a great opportunity last year, and he ended the season on a very hot streak. But I think if I'm looking talent versus talent, I'm taking Josh Jacobs over David Montgomery. In scoring opportunities, Josh Jacobs was 2nd in red zone touches and 3rd in goal line carries. David Montgomery had 7 total goal line carries for the year. He had 7 carries at the goal line as a starting running back in the NFL. It seems difficult to have that little. He's a better situation. I think not only was Josh Jacobs drafted in the first round, so they have a ton more money invested in him, and he's got a ton more commitment from the team. David Montgomery was drafted in the 3rd round, but the Raiders are 11th in rush attempts per game, and the Bears were 28th last year. So it's just how many touches, how many are you giving to each guy? Josh Jacobs is getting a ton more on the team. And then you look at the coaches and the GM. You look at John Gruden and Mike Mayock. They have so much more job stability than Nagy and Ryan Pace. Ryan Pace and Nagy could both be fired next year. And what's going to happen to a 3rd-round running back once that happens? And then, last but not least, you look at the depth chart. Yes, the Raiders just signed Kenyon Drake. Big Kenyon Drake, who everybody loves, going to save the season for everybody. But he's just basically a compliment to Josh Jacobs. He's everything that Josh Jacobs isn't. He's a receiving back. He is a great 3rd down back to have on that team. And Josh Jacobs isn't a great 3rd down back, let's be honest, but neither is David Montgomery. And then you look at the Bears. They just signed Damian Williams, drafted Khalil Herbert, who are both project as every down backs. Both have, not both have done it in the league. At least one has done it in the league. The other one is a high recruit from Virginia Tech. I just think that I like Josh Jacobs a lot better. 1st-round pick. You can't knock that commitment from the team. So I am Josh Jacobs over David Montgomery, and it feels simple to me. Super simple.
Good points, Joey. 100%. Like, the thing is for me, these guys are very close. The same thing I said about AJ Brown and DK Metcalf. These guys are very close. I think what separates Jacobs and Montgomery, we're talking PPR fantasy, either redraft, dynasty, doesn't matter, but it's PPR, right? And I'm going to get very statistical in this debate the same way that I did in the last one. I mean, look at Montgomery's stats from last season. Of course, box score is a lot different than actually watching the game. But from the box score, Montgomery was 4th in carries, 6th in targets, 6th in red zone targets among running backs. He ran the most routes of any running back, and he created the 4th most amount of yards among running backs. If you look at Jacobs, for instance, Jacobs was nowhere near that in receptions or targets. I mean, he is just strictly a runner, and that's good and all. And I quite honestly agree with you about him being a more talented back, but that's not what we're talking about. The same thing I said with Marco and AJ Brown and DK. We're not talking about talent here. We're talking about what you're going to get out of them from a fantasy point. And I think what's great for Montgomery is that for the last 2-3 years, he's played with absolute shit quarterbacks, right? Trubisky, Foles, they suck. No defense is scared of Trubisky throwing the ball. No defense is scared of Foles throwing the ball. They know that Montgomery's probably the biggest threat on that offense. I mean, yeah, Allen Robinson's there, but who's even going to get him the ball if they can? But now you have Justin Fields coming in, right? And I'm not the biggest Justin Fields lover in the world, but I think that Justin Fields opens up a world of opportunities for David Montgomery. He's going to be able to get more lanes, right? Because they're going to have to watch the passing. And David Montgomery is great out of the backfield in receiving. So Fields is going to be able to find Montgomery the same way that he found his running backs at Ohio State. And the thing is, with Jacobs, I just feel like his production is so just hindered. Like, he can't get more than what he's doing right now. Because how many more carries are you going to give the fucking guy? He's getting third carries in the league. Like, he can't do anything more than what he's doing. Like you said, Kenyon Drake's coming in. Kenyon Drake's going to do everything that Jacobs can't. I think from what you saw from Jacobs last year, like you said, third in red zone carries, third in carries in general, like top 5 in yards. That's great and all. That's what you're going to get from him. But even with Montgomery having a pretty poor season last year, he still had more fantasy points than Jacobs. His game is just way more open, and there's just way more that Montgomery can do. And like I said, we're talking fantasy here, right? So we care about the receptions, we care about the yards, we care about the touchdowns. And I just think Montgomery's ceiling is a lot higher than Jacobs.
Okay, so Marco,
right.
Actually, you want to formally open it to cross-examination?
I will. Shut your mouth. I'm sorry. I'm very... If you guys are watching on YouTube...
I was so offended that you said shut your mouth.
No, I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry to you.
I could barely... Oh my gosh, you rattled me with that rude comment.
I was not talking to you. I was talking to the listeners. I'm livid about this debate choice, whatever.
I'm sure you are.
I can't get over it. But let's focus on this one. We'll move on. So let's get a question from each of you going into it, and then I have some questions for each of you. So, Joey, I'll let you start off. Go ahead, ask Alex whatever it is you wanted to ask.
If Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy get fired, do you think that the next GM will look at David Montgomery and say, that's my running back of the future? That's who I'm putting my money in.
Well, I don't think that's what my concern is. I don't think that you're looking at him and asking, is he the running back of the future? Because I don't think David Montgomery is going to demand that much money. So, yeah, I think they do re-sign David Montgomery because then you have a 25-year-old running back. You have your... You have your 25-year-old running back. You have your 23-year-old
Let's say hypothetically...
Am I answering the question or are you? Thank you.
You're answering the question by saying I'm not answering the question. You're saying I'm worried about that.
I'm getting
I like
to the
him
point.
for these reasons.
You're not letting me get to the point. I mean, both of you are such shitty debaters. This is not how a debate works. Anyways, yeah, I think they do re-sign him. Like the Seahawks just signed Chris Carson for what, 3 years, $30 million, giving him $10 million a year. Like that kind of contract is what I think.
If you're the GM of the Bears, are you re-signing David Montgomery? Because that Bears
team has so many holes. So I'm not going to worry about running back. I'm going to secure David Montgomery down because he can give me what I need. I have Justin Fields at quarterback, 23 years old, and I have a lot of other holes to fucking look at. So I'm going to be drafting those holes.
You think that they're going to pay David Montgomery and not just take their chances on any other running back?
Do you think David Montgomery is going to be demanding 18? Do you think David Montgomery is going to be demanding 16, 18 million a year? No. It's going to be 9, 10 million a year. Same type of deal Chris Carson
wouldn't
just
give
got.
9, 10 million a year to a running back. I don't even think the Raiders would either, but I think they might to somebody they gave a first round pick to. That's just my question. So your answer is
yes,
I'll take
they would
it as
re-sign him.
You think that yes, the new GM.
Yeah,
I tend to disagree. I think most GMs look at third round running backs and they think I'm not going to base my whole entire job and offense on whether or not this guy. Who cares if he's a third-round
running back? He's a 1,000-plus rush yarder the past 2 seasons in his first 2 years. Who gives a fuck if he's a third-round running back? Antonio Brown was a 6th-round receiver. Are you not giving him $20 million a year just because he was a 6th-round receiver?
This question is done. Alex, ask whatever question you want of Joey.
Joey, I mean, can you disagree with me? And this is a question. Can you disagree with me that Josh Jacobs' potential isn't capped? I mean, do you really think he can take his game any further than it was last year?
Yeah, I do think he could take his game further than it was last year. We had a ton of injuries on that O-line for the Raiders. I think that O-line should be a lot better this year. I think you look at the defense they're going to face. Like Denver rush defense isn't that good. Kansas City, the main thing you want to do against them is run. San Diego Chargers, their defense isn't good, and that's who you're facing 6 times out of the year. You look at the Vikings. You're playing in cold weather. I mean, it's not. I mean, the Lions too. The Packers' run defense isn't that amazing, but I mean, I just think about the two offenses in general. I'm absolutely leading the Raiders over the Bears' offense, and then just the commitment alone to Josh Jacobs, a first-round pick.
I mean, sure, I give you all that, right? But you have to understand why it's capped from a fantasy perspective. We're talking fantasy here. That's what I mean when I say capped. Like, he was already third in carries, and yeah, the offensive line can get better, but he had eighth in in rush yards. Like, how much better can he really get?
Over 300 touches in general, and
sure,
you talk about capped. David Montgomery had 7 goal line touches. That's a product of the team not being able to get into the red zone and get in front of the goal line.
Right, and now
it's not even as much as how much the team wants to give him that. They love to be in front of the goal line a little bit more and give him some touches, but they just simply can't.
You're proving my point, though, about Justin Fields coming in. Now they're going to be in the red zone more. He's going to get more red zone carries. His potential is not capped like Josh Jacobs is.
You think it's a Nick Foles thing who won the Super Bowl, or do you think it's a Matt Nagy thing who has never done anything in the NFL?
Fucking Super Bowl.
Order, Joey. Just order. I'm going to give my 2 cents here. No. My 2 cents here, and then give my vote as well, and then I'll pass it to Nate and Tom to give their votes. I think you both, quite frankly, to tell you the truth, did a poor job, in my opinion, of defending your guy. Let me put it that way. And I think you both did a good job of attacking the other guy in some ways. Joey, there were some things that you didn't address that I would have expected you to address, and Alex,
the last 5 weeks was all 7 of his 8 touchdowns.
I expected that argument, and one thing I want to say. So, giving my 2 cents on David Montgomery, going into this, my choice would have been David Montgomery, and one of the things that I would have expected you to bring up, Alex, and you didn't, which is a defense that I have of David Montgomery, is everybody keeps attacking him and saying that he wasn't as good early in the season and he just had a really easy schedule towards the end of the year. And he did. But that easy schedule was the Packers that he scored 25 points against, the Lions that he scored 27 points against, and the Vikings that he scored 29 points against. And guess what? He plays all 3 of those teams twice next year because it's his division, right? So to me, I just don't understand the argument of people saying those defenses are what gave him and he's not worth anything anymore because he's still going to play them again. He was the 4th best fantasy running back in only his 2nd year. I'm surprised you didn't mention that, Alex. Go ahead.
Yeah, I had all these things you're mentioning right here. I'm not going to go into them now because the debate's over, but I had them all written down. I guess I got flustered. That's the most I could say.
I rattled you.
Got it.
To your core.
And my last point about David Montgomery is everybody, again, focuses on those last weeks, which, sure, those were his best weeks. He had over 20 from week 12 to 17. But in the first 9 games or whatever it was that he played, he only had 3 single-digit games. I mean, the rest of his games, he was in the middle, averaging around 15 points or so. So he wasn't doing terrible the whole season. I don't get why everybody acts like it's this really secluded area. It's just the area that he actually got a shit ton of carries, and he played defenses that he'll play twice this year. So I choose David Montgomery in general. In the debate, I'm going to go with Alex. Joey, you focused a lot on your reason against David Montgomery being that his offense is so poor, and that's the one thing that everybody agrees is going to improve this year. And I get what you're saying. Foles won a Super Bowl. Fields has done nothing yet, blah, 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 blah. But Fields is more talented. He's going to push that offense more. Everybody agrees with that. So if that's your main point of why Jacobs is better than Montgomery, I can't stick with it. I don't support it. I'm going with Alex on this one. Joey wins it.
Man.
Sorry, the main host picked me. It's okay.
I picked Alex, and I wanted Joey to win because now it's 1-1, and I have a chance to make it a 3-way tie, and I'll probably fuck it up apparently because nobody understands.
I'm sure you will. Karma will get you.
Personally, just one last thing.
Grab another drink real quick.
No, the debate's over. But honestly, if we're just talking Jacobs versus Montgomery, I don't think there's much else to say besides Jacobs' potential just being capped. He was already behind Montgomery this past season in fantasy points per game, and he was at the top in every stat that he's good at. So what the fuck else are you gonna get out of him? Not much.
It's like I said, Alex. You missed some points, and I think that was one of the bigger ones that you missed on.
I agree.
I didn't like Jacobs going into last year for that reason. A lot of people had him super high, and he lands He's going to be the same thing. He's just going to continue to be that same thing. All right, Joey, are you back?
I'm excited for this one,
you just
though.
walked away. Are you ready?
I got my drink. I kind of have to pee, but I'll wait till after.
Joey picked me for one. Marco picked me for one. I am completely unbiased in this one. I don't have any hate towards either of you. So
go ahead,
no
Joey.
bad, but had
ahead.
it been reversed.
You
I'm
start.
first. You seem like you want to talk.
Yeah, I've
Okay.
No, I started. I went first last time, and it clearly didn't work for me. So, all yours.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me here today. We will be making the case today for why Ezekiel Elliott is a better dynasty player than J.K. Dobbins. Not Josh Jacobs, but J.K. Dobbins. Ezekiel Elliott is better than him. And we have 5 main reasons. They are 1, the more opportunity to produce. 2, more opportunity for touchdowns. 3, more involved in the passing game. 4, opposing defensive strategy. You're going to want to stay tuned for that one. And 5, a bigger commitment from the team. So let's start with the 1, more opportunity to produce. Zeke saw a slight drop in the opportunity share from 2019 to 2020, but he still got 75% of the snap share. J.K. Dobbins got less than 50% of the snap share and was only 44th in opportunity share. The Cowboys also finished in second in plays per game, while the Ravens were only 25th in plays per game. So the Cowboys were seeing a lot more action on offense than the Ravens were game to game. More opportunities for touchdowns. Zeke had twice as many red zone touches, and he was third in goal line carries. J.K. only had 6 total goal line carries. I think Lamar and Gus are both the primary rush defender or red zone rushers kind of on that team. Number 3, Zeke is more involved in the passing game. He is heavily involved in the passing game. He was second in routes run, and J.K. only saw 24 targets in total and had 4 drops. Opposing defensive strategy. This is a big one. So Mike McCarthy is a pass-first coach. So Zeke only saw stacked boxes on 13% of his carries, and he was 60th in average defenders in the box. J.K. Dobbins saw twice as many stacked boxes and saw the 7th most average defenders in the box. And then the bigger commit from the team. I mean, we got a first-round pick, 4th overall. Zeke he got paid. I mean, J.K. Dobbins was a late second, very light commitment from the team. I know Zeke's getting older. He's not even 26 yet, though, so older is kind of put into terms like that. And I just think J.K. Dobbins has a lot of other mouths to feed in terms of rushing on that team. So, Marco, all the floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. All right. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to try and be as concise for everybody as possible here, but I'm going to stick to my main argument for fantasy value, and it's opportunity times efficiency equals fantasy points. Let's again talk about the efficiency of J.K. Dobbins versus Zeke. But first, I want to highlight you have J.K. Dobbins, who is 22 years old, versus Zeke, who is 25. They are over 3 years apart in age. Zeke is 5 years in a row already of 250-plus touches per season. The guy's body is hurting. I told you going into last year, if you're a listener, that Zeke was going to struggle. Joey told you that Zeke was going to struggle. He did. And for those who think it was because of Dak, Joey just gave reasons why it's not. And I'll get into that a little bit more. But first off, fantasy points per opportunity. J.K. Dobbins, 1.04 versus Zeke, 0.7. J.K. Dobbins was significantly better with the opportunities that he was given. He had 6 yards per carry versus Zeke's 4 yards per carry. He had 6.1 yards per touch versus Zeke's 4.4 yards per touch. Better in every category. Again, let's talk about the juke rate, which is evaded tackles divided by touches, right? So how many evaded tackles per touches is he getting? 30.9% juke rate for J.K. Dobbins, 23.3% for Zeke. Production premium for these two, which is a really cool stat coming from our player profilers you guys know we use. Production premium comparing where they stood to other running backs given the same situations. So how efficient were they given the same situations, red zone opportunities, etc., right? Excluding 2-minute drills, things like that. J.K. Dobbins, was plus 21.8 over the average for running backs. Zeke was minus 15.7 for the average for running backs. Everywhere you look, Zeke struggled across the board. J.K. Dobbins, 331 yards created for himself versus 332 for Zeke. They created for themselves the same amount of yards, with J.K. having 144 less touches. That's absurd. Absolutely absurd. 144 less opportunities to go ahead and prove and gain more yards, and they had the same exact amount. So the next part that I want to talk about is Joey's focusing on the stacked boxes. He's 100% right. J.K. Dobbins' stacked front carry rate, 28.4%. So 28.4% of the time he was facing a stacked box. But against those stacked boxes, he had 4.3 yards per carry. Zeke, only 12.7% of the time, but only 2.9 yards per carry against that. So my point here is, even with Dak out, he wasn't facing stacked boxes. He just wasn't efficient. So do not give him the scapegoat of it being Dak. He's getting worse. He has too many touches on him, too much tread on the tire. Go with the young guy.
All right, guys. Jesus fucking Christ. No, Nay, I'll go first. I mean, can I be very blunt with you two? I am disappointed. That was one of the most boring fucking debates I've ever heard in my life. I am hoping. Can we hear you talk? Thanks for joining.
This is such a shit show.
I'm gonna open this. Wait. Listen, I'm going to open this up to cross-examination. Hopefully you guys are a little more exciting. Go ahead, ask each other one question each. Let's see what we got. Marco, you start.
Joey.
Yes. Receiving.
Zeke had 296 touches last year. He's had over 250 5 years in a row. He's getting older. Do you think he's going to have more opportunities next year than the 296 that he just had?
Yes, I do think he'll have more opportunities. I think that we had a majority of the season with a backup quarterback in the first year of a new head coach. Okay, here's my question. If I put it back on you, if you have two more Zeke years ahead of Zeke, if he doesn't get injured and all this stuff, would you rather have those two Zeke years of guaranteed running back success, or would you rather take the chance on a second rounder who's on a run-heavy offense that doesn't see the goal line carries?
He's on a run-heavy offense, and he was a rookie last year. So you gave all these stats, which are cool, about how he had a low percentage of the carries, and he had a low percentage of goal line carries and everything. He was a rookie. He got eased into it. And by the way, one of his two competitors who had 72 carries last year is gone in Mark Ingram. I'm not saying he was the number one running back there, but he's going to get more and more opportunity in his sophomore year. It might not be this year. Zeke might have one more year of outperforming Dobbins, but it's a barely. It's close enough that Dobbins might even beat him this year. And even if they're very close, which is what I expect, then you get a guy who's very close but 3 years younger and isn't about to fall off the map. Zeke's 296 opportunities that he had last year is on par with what he does. I don't understand why the mindset is now that Dak's going to be back, he's going to have 600. Like, that's not how it's going to work. He didn't degrade there. He just was worse efficiently.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you, but just in terms of passing game, in terms of the offense, in terms of just the opportunity share, snap share on the team, it's absolutely Zeke. And I mean, if he doesn't get hurt, he could be 2-3 more years of it.
Zeke had 17 less red zone touches than he did the year before. So, like, the idea that it's because Dak was out and he just isn't seeing the red zone touches, he isn't seeing enough carries or touches, is just he had enough touches, he wasn't facing stacked boxes, he had close to the same amount of red zone touches.
Which means less big hits if he's not facing stacked boxes.
Why was he less efficient?
Because the quarterback changed and their passing game was awful.
What does that have to do with it if he's not facing a stacked box?
I don't know. I mean, what does it have to do with it?
You don't know because there's no reason.
The offensive line took a couple steps back. There was injuries on the O-line.
All right.
It's a product of the offense. It's a product of the coaching.
If it's a product of the offense, then he should have less red zone touches. He only had 16 less or whatever I said.
But what I'm saying is the Ravens are people playing the Ravens. They're ready for the run. People playing the Cowboys. They're ready for the pass, which leaves things open for Zeke, and he's still going to get his touches.
Except Zeke wasn't okay. I get that, but Zeke was
Lot
not
more
efficient,
spacing.
and you haven't answered why he's not efficient. You gave me a made-up reason that everybody's defaulting.
He's not
on,
efficient because
with
none
it
of the
being
offense
QB.
was efficient. They give it a first-year head coach that now is a
So his
pass-heavy
carries,
offense.
his yards per carries less efficient because the offense as a whole was less efficient. That doesn't make any sense unless he was facing stacked boxes.
Everything was more efficient. Tone at the top. Everything It's if you're
He
passing
had
less
yards created for himself. He was less evasive, all because the rest of the offense was less efficient.
Yeah, because
it
the
doesn't make
spacing.
sense.
People are getting used to it, but I think it makes sense to me.
All right. We're wrapping it up. That's good. You guys did great. Awesome. My 2 cents first on the argument. Coming into it, I would have 100% favored Zeke in this argument. I think Zeke just has more potential. I think Zeke's a top 5 running back, whereas Dobbins is probably more top 15 at most. In terms of the debate, like, Joey's points all felt to me as if they were like points for J.K. Dobbins, so I didn't really understand most of them. Marco's points were just very, very in detail to the point where it's like, how much does that really matter? Where maybe it does, but it's not what like we're really looking at here for me. Personally, I'm gonna go with Marco just because I feel like a few points Joey didn't make much sense. And a few points Joey made were actually in favor of J.K. Dobbins, like the stack box thing. Like, yeah, J.K. Dobbins faced a lot more stack boxes.
That's
that
how
might continue,
defenses
but
face those players. And
sure,
you're
but that could get better. Like
J.K.
Zeke,
Dobbins, a Ravens
And he
defense.
had 6 yards per carry against those stacked boxes. So
right, J.K.
not
Dobbins
really worried
did
about
well
it.
against those stack boxes. So that's, I mean,
I'm worried about it.
Again, it's not. I have a feeling I know the way Nate and Tom are about to go.
Go me.
Personally, I didn't want to pick a winner, but my winner's Marco here. Nate, go ahead.
Bias, same last name.
Oh,
Wow,
and the
I'm
sweep.
surprised.
Let's fucking go. Not only that, Joey, all 3 of them agree that Zeke is better, but all 3 of them agree that I beat you in this debate. So you can suck it. Fuck you for picking Alex in the first one. That feels great. I'm screaming at the top of my lungs. My son is gonna wake up. Yeah,
No,
well,
it
you know
was
what,
pretty
Tom?
boring.
Sometimes boring is accurate, and that's all that matters. That's all right. Are we good? Is that
We're
it?
good.
We're done. We
We're
had
tied.
a 3-way. Everybody got to win, so we'll have more ADP debates. But I'm the only one who had a sweep. So in a lot of ways, I'm the winner tonight. In almost every way. That's all I got. Joey, do you want to sign us off?
Yeah, next week we'll be discussing the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and you will not believe what side we're all on.
This podcast was hosted by Marco Balsamo, Joey Zoll, and Alex Balsamo. Produced by 133 Media and edited by Joe Amato.